What's going on? So today I spent $1,000 on my health. How did I do that? I went and saw a nutritionist and functional medical practitioner and basically went through kind of my whole history. I got my blood works in a graph, showed them that, went through it, looked at what was optimal, what wasn't, and then we talked about everything from sleep, diet, what my lifestyle's like, what I'm doing to manage stress, and other aspects that I'm focusing on at the moment. So, what was really interesting to me was some of the things that came up in conversation that I wasn't aware of, like parasites react to the moon. It was a question: do you notice the moon? Do you have symptoms that would align with parasites around the full moon? In an indirect way, because we're affected by the full moon because we produce less melatonin and more serotonin, and some parasites can use serotonin as a way to move, so become more active. Anyway, back on point. Little fun tip there. So what was beneficial about this was when we're trying to manage our health, sometimes it's really helpful to have someone else that manages everyone else's health a lot, to be able to look over what you're doing from an objective external position and go, yep, that's good, no, tweak this. And so for me, I'm someone that focuses on my health intensely. It's like one of my top values. I have spent my last dollar to support my health, and basically as you go through that journey, it goes from the common things: diet, sleep, movement. You've got those things dialed in, and then it gets to the more micro, nuanced things where, let's say for me, minerals like increasing my salt was something that I'm not doing that I should be doing based on my clinical symptoms. Then optimizing sleep with my mouth being taped. So let's just backtrack a little bit and say why I'm going to this consult. It wasn't because I actually had anything symptomatic to the point that I was like, I need this fixed. It was actually that I was like, my health's here, but I feel it can be here. Let's look at how we can optimize that. Also, having just spent 4 or 5 months in heavy industry work doing, your physical labor and machine operating around, probably not the best environment, and it incurred some stress and I wasn't optimal in my health. I wanted to get a snapshot of where my health is at currently, so as I actually make the adjustments going forward, I can get a bit of a picture of before and after. And I want to make that as three-dimensional as possible. So yeah, I'll have some physical pictures, I'll have my subjective feeling, I'll have some video documentation, but also the blood work that actually shows where it's at now. So in the future I can go, my testosterone levels were here, and after making adjustments, here's where they are and this is how I feel. Because I think it's important to be able to track it, not just subjectively, as aware as we may be of our body. So what I'm feeling at the moment is basically, over the time of working, my stress increased, and that's now manifesting as lower quality sleep, as muscle tension, as a general dull, kind of dense energy. Not quite brain fog, but on that spectrum, like mild brain fog, we'll say. And just, I can feel that my mind's not as sharp as it could be. I've got like this effect where it's just kind of like flowing forward, and instead of me being able to stop and kind of analyze things really well, I just kind of want to keep moving. And I find that's kind of synonymous with stress and high momentum, which kind of is intertwined. So anyway, going to this health practitioner today was really helpful to be even more aware of what I'm doing, because as I was being asked questions, there were some things I hadn't considered, and I realized I hadn't been looking at it in the most overhead way that I could have. I was just kind of looking at what's in front of me and putting out fires and being like, I know this is roughly better. But now I feel like I have a much more overhead view of all aspects of my health and a direction going forward. So basically, the main outcomes for me were increasing salt, taping the mouth, and I've got some blood tests to do, like quite a decent few. Basically, um, trying out this tracking on the camera. Not bad. Yeah, the option was to go through a online service provider for blood tests and then just do it myself. Um, it's not, it wasn't that much more expensive to do it that way, but to have a healthcare practitioner oversee it and be able to actually interpret it and give you direct advice from experience, that's worth paying a little bit more, in my opinion. So there were some other interesting points that, due to previous brain trauma, what can activate then is microglial cells. Now, I was familiar with them, but what I wasn't aware of is they turn pro-inflammatory after a trauma, then anti-inflammatory, and then back to pro-inflammatory, and they stay like that forever. And that's really interesting, because then, as once you've had one brain trauma, then it can compound, and inflammation from seemingly small things like gluten can then actually create a bit of a chain reaction and cause more sensitivity. So I'm fortunate with the amount of emphasis I've put on my health. I don't have the severe consequences or harmful outcomes that probably my past should indicate, to be honest. Anyway, what this video is about, maybe those brain traumas are showing through after all. What I wanted to show in this video is basically what I got out of going to a healthcare practitioner when it wasn't, I didn't have pain that needed to be remediated. I actually just wanted to advance my health and optimize it. Even though it's at a decent level, I wanted to get it to optimal. And that consult was about $300 Australian. The blood tests were $650. So that's not quite $1,000. So I did also have yoga and sauna in the morning, and then I had dry needling this afternoon. So that does bring the total to $1,000 for the day. And yeah, quite the health-filled day. And I'm feeling good for it. I feel physically, starting off with yoga and sauna is a great way to start the day, feeling clear. Not optimal clear, but given the lifestyle I've come from and the high stress that I have endured, it is a good improvement. Having the wellness plan mapped out really helped give me more of a sense of certainty in the journey forward for my health journey. And having the dry needling, that always helps really alleviate muscle tension that's built up and put me in a more parasympathetic state. So yeah, it's not something that I do all the time, go and spend $1,000 on my health, but I do get dry needling, and probably, let's say $150, $200 a week I would spend on trying to maintain and optimize my health. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people, when you don't value something and you don't have budget for it, you can really see someone else doing it and go, you're spending a lot on that. And then, that same person may be someone that values social interaction and blowing off steam, and they may choose to go out on a weekend and drink and have a big night out or two and easily spend $500 that way and not really think anything of it because they have budget for it. So sometimes it's worth realizing where your values are and where your priorities are, and seeing if you can make budget, because I guess the beneficial thing about paying this money now, it's probably going to save me down the track. Like, not guaranteed to, but quite likely if you can keep a track of where your health indicators are at, how you're subjectively feeling, and doing the right lifestyle things, then you're going to really minimize your chance for having negative health outcomes in the future versus the person that just, no, I don't want to see a doctor because I don't want to know what's going on, and making some perhaps more unhealthy lifestyle choices like drinking and smoking, eating fast food. How that's going to affect them in 20, 30 years is obviously a great deal more likely to have negative health outcomes versus the person that's proactive in their health. So, yeah, there we are.